Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and you may not know this about this channel, but we like RPGs here, and so we've talked about the likes of Mass Effect, KOTOR, Dragon Age, and of course, Cyberpunk. Those are sort of the pillars of our channel at this very moment in time, but of course, it goes beyond that. We like to talk about as many RPGs as possible here on this channel, and so in today's video, I thought while the news was a little bit dry, that we'd sit down and take a look at the upcoming landscape for RPGs, games that no one's really talking about, games that need to get on your radar. We got 10 of them here today. I'm really excited to talk about each of these, and at some point throughout this channel's future, these games will be featured, whether it's a review, podcast discussion, news videos, updates, so on and so forth. So if you like RPGs, you're looking forward to any of these or some that I previously mentioned, be sure to subscribe. Like button also helps a little bit, just a bit of a secret there as well. And with that, let's get started with number one, because we got a lot of games to go through. So our first game on this list of RPGs that I think no one is really talking about is Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. Now this comes from Owlcat Games. They are the developers of the Pathfinder series. Their most recent entry was Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now this is an indirect sequel, so if you're like me, you never played Kingmaker, which got a couple of updates and a re-release, which actually ended up fixing a lot of issues people had with the game, so they sort of have this formula down. That's okay, because you can seemingly just hop into Wrath of the Righteous. I imagine the developers are anticipating a lot of new eyes coming in on this game. So simply put, you can tell through the gameplay that if you like Divinity, you're probably going to be interested in this. It's isometric tactical gameplay, real choices and consequences. It's kind of that run-of-the-mill isometric RPG that you've come to know and love, and I think you can never have enough of all of those. So having control of those battles is really nice, and I of course adore what Divinity does. Maybe it's not quite on its level, but still anything remotely in the park of Divinity is a huge compliment in my opinion. Now currently this game is not out. It's available as a beta to backers on Kickstarter, but it's apparently having its full release this year, 2021. So keep your eye out for Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. Now let's keep running through these. Like I said, we got a ton of games to go over, and of course you know me, I like to chat, so we just gotta be like bang 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 about it. So let's get into Bravely Default 2. You may think this is a bigger one in the scheme of things, and I wouldn't blame you, right? This is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. Everyone loves the Switch, and everyone loves Bravely Default. The last time we saw a game from this series was about 7 years ago. This comes from the team that brought us Octopath Traveler, probably one of my favorite Switch exclusives so far into that console's life cycle. The blending of a beautiful art style, the evolution of the Bravely Default gameplay. I love the little intermittent stories there, although it's one of the game's biggest flaws. I still enjoyed the characters, and there was just this old school charm to it all. Bravely Default 2 continues that on, and much like Pathfinder, you don't have to play the first one to understand the second one. So if you're new to this whole series, like me, you can just go ahead and dive right in. Now, what's really standing out about Bravely Default 2 as an RPG is its job system, the amount of flexibility you have with characters and how you can customize them. Also, there are brave points which allow you to go all in on one turn. So as the turns progress, you build up this thing called brave points, and then you can spend them all to stack up attacks. So if you feel like, hey, I can finish him off this turn if I do 3 attacks in a row with this one character, you can do just that. So there's a little bit of a dynamic element stuck into this combat system, and it looks like, from what I've read from previews and looked online, and from what I gathered from previous games from this developer, I mean, as someone who's put almost 100 hours into Octopath Traveler, it kind of makes sense that gameplay is the star here. That's no disrespect to the characters or the story, it just seems like the gameplay is the big grab here. But there could be something there from what I've read online. There's a lot of charm to the story. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of chibi character models. It's never been my style, but still, this looks like a great RPG. It's only come out in a couple weeks as of the time of recording this video. So if you haven't gotten in on this, there's actually a demo available. Go ahead, give it a look. Let me know what you think, and with that, let's dive into number 3, which is The Ascent. Now, I don't want to be so redundant with the amount of times I mention it, but since I'm running an Xbox podcast now called Defining Duke, please do check it out if you have yet to. I've gotten more involved in the Xbox ecosystem, and what I've actually learned is that there are a lot of cool third-party exclusives coming to this console. One of them is The Ascent. Now, The Ascent is this isometric action RPG. It's in a world driven by mega corporations, and what's really cool is this is the style of game that I adored growing up, right? The isometric action RPG genre is pretty much desolate. nowadays. You had the Champion series, you had Baldur's Gate. You know, these games were so fantastic back in the day, and then they just disappeared because Diablo happened, and I don't know why we didn't see more. Of course, we've had a couple of spin-offs here or there. We had Torchlight, we had The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing, but we never had something that really stuck. And I feel like when it comes to the Ascent, this is something that can really stick. So pretty much the big draw here to me is the evolution of next-gen technology wrapped into an isometric action RPG. So there's verticality. Despite it being a twin-stick shooter, there are different levels of combat, which is something that we really don't see often in this style of game. Often the environments are quite static, the world is very static. They also have environmental destruction that stays, so you really kind of build your own warpath as you go through this. Apparently there's lots of side quests and content to dive into, there's endgame gameplay. So the Ascent is something that's going to be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem, so the series consoles, Xbox in general, and of course PC. So do keep that in mind, but the Ascent looks awesome. I'm really excited for this one. It comes from a very small team of, I believe, about 12 people, so it's even more impressive what they're doing here. So keep your eye out on the Ascent. This one looks really good. Now, on to number 4, Cris Tales. This one, man, I gotta say, it has a real charm to it that may not be for everybody, but it caught my attention. Of course, the art style immediately pops out. Very much eye-catching, colorful splashes everywhere. Looks great, but what's neat about this is that it's a time-traveling RPG. Anyway, the time traveling takes place dynamically before your eyes because you do play as Chris Bell, who is a time-traveling mage, and you can see through the screen itself that on the right side is where time is ahead, and on the left side is where time is behind, and in the middle is present day. So you'll see, for example, a character model way back in the past on the left, and as you enter the frame and start centering them, they'll go into the present. And so there's this kind of interactive engagement with the theme of the game, the core of it all. And I think a lot of games really succeed that way when you have your art style or your visuals matching up with the actual universe itself. A game I think of pretty often is The Messenger. While not an RPG in this case, it's a game that symbolized time traveling through its changing of 8-bit and 16-bit art styles. So when you went ahead in time, the game turned into 16-bit. They did a couple more graphical flares here and there, and it looked like a completely different game in a number of ways, symbolizing that time traveling. So same thing here, but a different approach to it. The combat itself looks cool and really leans into that time traveling aspect as well, which I really appreciated. Once again, demo available for Cris Tales, so give this one a look. It's coming out later this year in the summer of 2021, and I think it'll be something that's not for everybody, but definitely different enough where it should catch some of your attention out there. Number 5, this will be a quick one. Darkest Dungeons 2. We don't know much about this game at all. I'm terrible at Darkest Dungeon. I have been wiped the floor with that game. I remember playing it on my Vita. I got dominated each time. I'm not good at this game at all. But I guess sheer morbid curiosity has led to me placing it on this list. I know a lot of you out there dig this game. I've talked to some of the folks at Red Hook Studios. I want to hopefully set up an interview at some point in time. When they announced the game, I contacted them and they said they wanted to wait until they had more to share before they came on one of my shows. So this is one of those situations where I'm just excited to see more of this game inside and out. And I gotta say, we know nothing else about it, so I'm not gonna stick on it too long, but Darkest Dungeons was grueling, super difficult. I mean, to the point where it just crunched you big time. So you have quirks like psychological issues, physical issues, and you're constantly cycling out party members. It's like always a struggle, never easy. So I'm very keen to see what they do with, of course, Darkest Dungeon 2. Now, let's move on to number 6, King Arthur Knight's Tale. So, speaking of Darkest Dungeon, you've got yourself a game that takes some inspiration from that, as well as XCOM here, but it's a medieval RPG. So you'll immediately look at the combat and think of the likes of Divinity, or more recently, we're talking about Pathfinder. But here, like I said, there's a little more XCOM mixed in with it, which I adore. Really not sure why XCOM was never messed with as a formula outside of the XCOM series itself. Maybe it's because XCOM isn't super duper crazy popular, but I gotta say, I dig the hell out of that series. So seeing an RPG take some of those mechanics is music to my ears. Now, with King Arthur, what's happening here is that you are amassing a party to kill King Arthur yet again. You've been brought back to life, and one of the aspects of this gameplay is managing Camelot, which works a lot like managing the tavern and whatnot within Darkest Dungeon. So it wears a lot of its inspiration on its sleeve, which I think is good. Unless you're Warner Brothers Games, then it's not a good thing at all, and gaming's not an art form that can be innovated upon. But point being is that this looks like a good evolution of a gameplay style that maybe people liked in, say, a Darkest Dungeons, but they went, that game's not for me. This one may be. Now, this one, unfortunately, is also in early access, so you gotta wait a little bit longer, but there is a prologue available. If you've got some excess cash to spend, you want to check it out, go for it. But of course, this is one of those situations where I even say this with Baldur's Gate 3, just wait on it, sit, see how it develops. But right now, it looks very promising, so keep your eyes on King Arthur. Now, with that, let's move into some JRPGs. Scarlet Nexus is up next, and I gotta say, the more they show, the more I like about this game. So it's really telekinetic, action-packed gameplay, and that's all I need. That's it, man. Like, you are just flinging around heavy objects at a flower pot with a high heel on. Okay, sure. Sold. I mean, does it take more than that for you? I don't know why it would. Also, the scaling of skills in this game is really nice, it seems, just general perk trees, and it kind of reminds me of some of the older Tales of games. Another thing that's really nice is Bandai usually likes to copy and paste their anime style games, whether it's based off an anime or not. They just seem to have a formula that they really lean into without any apologies whatsoever. And so it's been very nice to see a game with a new mechanic and some new ideas, and them just embrace that and not try to copy paste something. So I'm just excited for the game sheerly off that premise there. I don't know much about the story. They seem very vague on details, but I'm sure we'll get more answers as the launch approaches. Definitely recommend following their Twitter account. They're dropping little gameplay bits here or there, and they're ramping up the promotion. It's just not getting that mass appeal, so I'm a bit worried about the game's future because it looks really good, but no one's seemingly talking about it. Now let's move on to number 8. Number 8 is Rune Factory 5. Once again, simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? If Stardew Valley were a JRPG, this is it, okay? And that's all you need. No, but seriously, this has farming, it has fishing, but it has like an action combat system with team attacks and crazy Tales of like combat. I've never played Rune Factory before, and I've only had interest in Rune Factory 4 on the 3DS. I know they did a re-release on the Switch for Rune Factory 4, and I gotta say, I'm holding out for 5. I really want to play this game, but 5 looks fantastic. It looks like a true evolution of everything that was in 4, both graphically and gameplay-wise, so I'm really, really excited about this one. It's coming out sometime later in 2021. It looks like a huge time sink. I feel like my battery is recharged. A lot of you will remember I was on a huge Dragon Quest Builders 2 kick back in 2019. That was one of my top 5 games of the year. I adored that. And then that building energy has to recharge, right? I put about almost 100 hours into it, and I went, okay, I think I'm done with this game, even though there's a lot more content than just 100 hours in that one. Just keep in mind if you're looking into it, it's a phenomenal game. But anyway, that building and management energy has really recharged, and Rune Factory 5 looks like the perfect place to spend that built up energy. So I'm very excited for this one. Keep it on your radar. It's coming out on the Switch later this year. All right, number 9, really cool looking game, Digimon Survive. Now, I love darker tones in spin-offs of popular franchises. This is something that Pokemon used to do, and then they just stopped. Like, now they're doing Pokemon Snap again, but there's gone are the days of Mystery Dungeon having these darker stories, or Pokemon Conquest where you're sending them into war and kind of building the universe more and more. It seems like some of the more serious stuff is held from the manga, and even then it's like a soft delivery. So I love what Digimon Survive is doing, sheerly based off premise. It's got a mixture of graphical novel gameplay as well as tactics gameplay, and so there's not much known for it. It received a delay in 2020 into mid 2021, and we haven't heard much of it since. But this game just looks really different, really cool, much more dark than other games that we've seen from Digimon and really other major franchises. So I love the idea of creatively expressing a new idea within a popular franchise. Really looking forward to what exactly is going on with Digimon. So let's stay tuned for that one and move on in to number 10. Now, what is the last one? It's Shin Megami Tensei 5. And now, the reason I picked SMT 5 here is because you're probably like me if you watch this channel, some of you out there. You love Persona, but no one talks about SMT. SMT gave birth to Persona. Just Persona happened to be a lot more popular because of its social elements. And I think also the game has just become a lot more marketable as time has gone on. Of course, putting Joker in Smash, that helps a lot. But SMT is what really gave birth to Persona. So while people currently aren't talking about SMT5, now when it starts happening, it'll be on your Twitter feed. I mean, when they start really ramping it up, that's when it's going to really pop off, because they're actually doing a global launch for this game, something that Persona for some reason continues to lag behind on. They're doing a global launch for SMT5, meaning that whether you're in Japan, the US, whatever, you're actually going to have the game at the same time, which is great. I'm tired of getting games spoiled for me because they're coming out in Japan first, especially when you have a fan base here that's very excited for it. So SMT5 gave birth to Persona, so there's a lot of similar elements there, but it's also very different. It sometimes arguably takes a darker path, and so I'm very excited to learn more about it. As a new SMT fan, I want to embrace it, but you have to know, by the way, if you're going into SMT, I need to emphasize it is vastly different from Persona, so don't expect the social elements. You already know SMT5 is going to have one review that's going to complain that it's not like Persona, it's going to look very foolish, it's going to happen. Don't be that person. Now, with all of that, that is 10 RPGs that are coming in 2021 that I feel no one's really talking about. So with that, I leave it in your hands. What do you think of some of these RPGs? Are there any that I missed? I did a lot of digging through various websites, various lists, and people's personal anticipated games, and did my own research afterwards. So what do you think of all of this? Let me know in the comments down below. Fire away with some of your games, and I'll talk with all of you very soon. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.